911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Did you see what it was?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was. Just it ran across the yard.
It seems to be a Bigfoot leaning against a tree in a wooded area.
I have seen plenty of people with big feet, but not Bigfoot.
Tree lines and brush, he sees about a 7 and 7.5 foot tall Sasquatch looking back at him.
Kind of looks like a wolf, but not like a neighborhood dog.
Take these stories for what they are in hopes that maybe if it's out there, then show me.
Yeah.
And says he might have caught the mythical chupacabra creature terrorizing his chickens.
Like a grunt and a knock. It's like a...
I think there's kind of a cultural tendency for people to want to make Bigfoot a quote-unquote monster.
Welcome to ECBRO Bigfoot Radio.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Radio, ECBRO Bigfoot Radio. But here we are on Bigfoot Zone, live on YouTube. And tonight, it's going to be a very fun and interesting discussion tonight, as we have, for those who don't know, Mr. D.L. Huffman, also known as, his name is Dave. So, Dave, it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, Dave, we actually got to meet all in person. Melissa and David and myself, we got to meet you for the first time back in at the camp out. Well, you've come out to my events and everything too. So, but yeah, it's yeah, we got to hear you talk and share some experiences when you came out to our camp. You know, so we'll kind of touch base on some of that here in a little bit, but. I kind of wanted to put the spotlight on you a little bit since we're just starting off and everything. How long have you been involved with the Bigfoot phenomenon? Has this been something that's always been a big part of your life, or is this something you kind of stumbled upon?
I tell you, like many people my age, I was young when my dad actually took me to see that movie, The Legend of Boggy Creek. And when I was young, I remember hiding my face in his coat because I was scared of the things were going on in the movie. And then after that, I was more acquainted with Bigfoot through the Patterson-Gimlin films, and throughout time, in search of, like many people, watched a lot of shows, and then about 4 years ago, I got on YouTube TV and I started searching different videos and learning things. But the first video I watched was a video produced by the ECBRO. And that's where I learned who you were. And from there, I continued to search and learn.
Very cool. Well, I'm honored that you happened to come across one of my videos. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're not like, I mean, I like to say that we stand out, we're different. I mean, we try not to be like other people, you know. A lot of my field videos, for example, you know, they're not like some of these other videos that you come across on YouTube where they always produce a Bigfoot in them. some people will say that my content might be boring, because a lot of times I do share a lot of the scenery and where I'm at and what I'm doing. Of course, if I find something interesting, I like to share it and point it out. Uh, if I have to capture Bigfoot on my videos, hey, that'd be great. I mean, I've had people, after watching some of my videos, say, hey, go check out timestamps number such and such. I think you have something right there that was behind you or watching you, and I'll go back and check it out. And some of the stuff does kind of come across as, it makes you think. Did I have something there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I didn't see it. I like to believe that I'm usually pretty well aware of my surroundings on the most part. So, but yeah, that's pretty much kind of how it goes. And real quick, for those who are watching, if you have comments or questions, I am watching the live chat as we speak. So feel free to ask questions or share your comments. And again, I'll display them on the screen, and we'll use them towards tonight's discussion. So, see, hold on one second. All right. So yeah. What kind of experience did you have? Some experiences you want to share with us?
Well, I've been camping in the western portion of the George Washington National Forest since I was a toddler. That's where my family went and vacationed, and my father joined a group of hunters back in 1954 that also camped in that area and hunted. And then when I was old enough, at age 10, in 1976, I got to join those hunters, but I camped in that area as a toddler and was a very young man and had a lot of experiences. Uh, we still go there every October and in November, and we enjoy the national forest there. Uh, my first experiences date all the way back to 1994. I had joined the military in 1986 through 1990, and then I lived in Arizona from 1990 to 1993. So I finally got to go back to camp in 1994, and that's where it started. I didn't realize it started then. I really didn't know what I was seeing and hearing and smelling until I started watching documentaries after I watched your video, and it all came down, and it all added up. The pieces of a puzzle. These pieces, they finally joined together, and then I really was able to experience more. My first experience in 1994 was a tree structure. It was a trail that left the campground that I was in at camp that went up. It goes up to the top of Shenandoah Mountain into Virginia, and it was real peculiar. And I stood for an hour and I looked at what was 5 trees that were spaced around a center tree, and these trees were probably 4 to 6 inches in diameter, and they were spread out probably each of them about 15 yards from the center tree. They were snapped off, and they were all leaning on the center tree, and I didn't understand it. And then I walked up to the tree that was on the higher elevation, and I held my hand up, and I'm 6'3", and I can reach nearly 8.5 feet, a little bit more, and I couldn't reach the break. It was about a foot taller. The trees that were down sloped from that tree were also snapped off, but they were higher. So if you stood back and looked at them, the breaks formed a perfect level line. And I sat and looked and looked and looked and studied, and I couldn't imagine somebody hiking a mile up in the woods. I mean, just carrying a ladder, obviously, to try to break off trees. But I wrote it off back then. And then over the years, through the 90s and the 2000s, I had more experiences. There are two trails there. There's one that goes from the campground up to the top of Shenandoah Mountain, and another one to the right that forms a loop. And I had experiences on the loop trail too that were very peculiar. There's a section of that trail that always seemed dead. There was no movement. There's no birds, no squirrels, no deer. And I would always stop when I was hunting and hiking that trail in October to look, I mean, just, I couldn't understand what was going on. And it was just very peculiar. And I had experiences over the years on that section of the trail. One year I had I'd reached that position and I smelled what I only could explain would be like the mixture of a dead deer that had been rotting and a drop toilet like you would find in a national forest campground or whatever. It was very bad. And so I thought I would search the area and look for this. And I searched probably about a 30-yard area circling around. I only walked as far as where I couldn't smell. And I, I, I never found anything. And I was lost with that. And
you end up leading the smell. You end up finding my campsite, right? No, I'm just joking.
but stemming all the years going through that area, there were other experiences. I had another year. Of course, the loop, I would follow the junction of the loop. I would go to the right, and it would go uphill into the base of Shenandoah Mountain and circle back around. It would go up an elevation, down an elevation. And there was another year I reached a point coming down where I thought one of my friends that I hunted with was walking near me. And I would walk a little bit and I could hear somebody walking on the ridge to my left when I walked. And when I stopped, the noises stopped. And I got upset to a point, and I walked a little bit, and then I couldn't. I mean, the walking stopped when I stopped. And when I reached the point where the junction of the trail joined again, it was gone. And I never seen anything. I wrote it off as being part of, hunting and other hunters in the woods, but it was something strange. And there was a point in time where two of my fellow hunters were up in that same area to the right, on the right side of the trail. And I wasn't with them. I was back in camp, but they wandered in later that afternoon, and both of them were upset, but they weren't hunting together. And one of them started telling a story about he had a squirrel dog, and he said that they heard these noises up there, and his dog got really upset and was really scared and was cowering in the leaves. And my other friend, Doc, he he said, "Where were you hunting?" And Dwayne said, "I was hunting on the right side of the loop trail up on the what they call Cowgers, the mountain." And he said, "I heard those noises too." And that was when it was in camp. They nicknamed that area Squatch Hollow. And it's always had some very unusual experiences. Back in 2023, I was camping with a good friend of mine in September in the campground in a field just adjacent to the campground, and a campground host come up to talk to us after dark, and it was a Friday night. And I told him, I said, tomorrow, I said, my friend and I are going to be hiking this loop trail. I said, we're going to leave at about 9:30 a.m. I said, if we're not back by 5 p.m., I said, please send somebody to find us. I said, there's a portion of that trail, I said, that is very quiet. I said, you always feel like somebody is watching you. And the campground host said, I have heard that from many hikers up on that trail. And then in that we were camped in a field adjacent to the campground, and he said this past summer, one of the park rangers was up here working by themselves, and she said she heard women's and children's voices in the woods. And he said, I just kind of wrote that off. And he said, I was up here working a couple weeks later, and he goes, I heard those voices too. And he looked at us and he said, these woods are haunted. And we kind of got a good laugh of that, but it kind of painted the picture of that loop trail. I had other experiences there too when hiking. And there was another time I was with my friend Curtis, and we were.
Hey, could I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to let David and Melissa know I had to mute you guys because you guys had some major feedback from whatever TV or whatever in your background, and I heard over top of Dave, so I had to mute you guys on that end. So I don't want you to think I'm just muting you just to mute you. I had some major feedback, so so that's why I got you guys muted right now. So yeah, to see if I unmute you, that's all I hear is the sound in the background. So,
what kind of sound is you hear?
It sounds like a TV or something playing.
Oh.
Yeah.
There we
go. You can pick that up on here?
What's that?
That's all the way across the other side of the room.
Yeah. Yeah, because depends on the microphone you're using. Yeah, I can pick up everything that's in your house.
All right.
You do.
Yeah.
Can you hear it now?
Yeah, you're a lot better now. Very quiet now. So that's why I even keep myself muted too. But I want to ask Dave real quick before you go on any further. I'm just trying to get a feel of the area because it sounds like I know this area you're talking about. When you talk about Shenandoah Mountain, are you talking about like right there where you come into Virginia? Are you on the backside of Reddish Knob by any chance?
The George Washington National Forest extends west, just over into West Virginia. Not much, but a little bit. And this area is the area of High Knob, which is, I guess, north of Reddish Knob, off of Route 33.
Okay. Because it sounds like you're down, but like it sounds like you're coming from the Sugar Grove, West Virginia area.
It's a little bit north of there.
North of there. Okay. Going towards Franklin.
Yes.
I got you. Okay. Cool. All right. But yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you on anything. You feel free to continue. This is pretty good. I'm following you pretty good here. So.
Well, that loop trail, it's pretty interesting. And in 2023, when I was hiking it with my friend Curtis, we were looking around and we found a 6-foot section of a pine tree. It was the top of a pine tree laying across the trail, and there were no pine trees in the area. And for this tree, for this top of this tree to be laying there, we were kind of confused about it. And we looked around, and I don't think a storm blew it there, but we took note of it. And on the hike, I don't have too many more experiences on the loop trail, but I've always wondered if there were caves in that area. I've never found any. I understand there are a lot of caves in that part of the George Washington, but it's
funny that you talk about caves. I believe I personally have seen a couple small looking caves that are more down into the national forest over in my area where I camp at. There's some I've seen. I haven't approached them personally, but like for example, one of the main spots that we camp at out there in the national forest, about 2 miles from there, where the river, there's part of the North River, where the North River forms. There is actually, I'm talking like these are small caves where I'm sure bears could use them, but there are other locations I have yet to really venture into where I have reason to believe there may be some small caves in there. I'm not talking about like a cave where we could just walk into, like, but I believe there's a lot of small, den type caves and stuff throughout the area. But I personally believe there probably is some that we haven't seen or discovered yet. I mean, I like to come across some of those. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think they're around. There is so much acreage that goes through there, and it's just a small portion of the George Washington. The majority of it's in Virginia, and now there was another year. Again, I was up the other trail. It goes from the base of the campground all the way to the top of to Too High Knob, and I was in a little cove hunting. It would have been a little bit, I guess, north of where I saw that tree structure in '94. And I was having lunch sitting at the base of a nice large old oak tree. And this is late October. There's lots of leaf litter. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. And I looked down at the ground when I was eating, and it looked like part of that oak tree, a root had grown part way out of the ground. And it was rather large, and for some reason I kicked it with my boot. And it wasn't a root. It was scat. And it wasn't a little bit of scat. It was a lot of scat. And it had some berries in it. I didn't see any hair. Of course, the acorns were very heavy that year. And it wasn't anything a deer would produce. It wasn't bear scat. It wasn't coyote scat. And then,
Well, yeah, because when you said it had berries in it, bear was the first thought that came through my head. But the thing is, I've seen bear scat in so many different forms. Some of it could look human, and some of it looks like a cow patty, clustered with seeds and berries and stuff. But that's why I wanted to bring it up, because, like I said, that's the first thought that came through my head. It was a bear, but. So I don't know. You've seen it. I haven't seen it. So
it was more in the form of a cow patty, but it had some I guess I would say more structure to it. But it was huge.
Yeah.
And as I sat there and I looked, I stood up and I looked and I started counting. But there was leaf litter. Like I said, it's late October. And there's leaf litter falling on the ground. I stopped counting at 25 piles of scat. Some smaller, some larger. Some of it much larger, as large or larger than what a cow would produce.
Right.
And
so wait, this scat was in a cluster?
Yes.
Okay. See, that's also that's making me think of, okay, I'm definitely leaning more towards me personally. I've seen bear scats in cluster before. It's usually it's probably an area where they feed off of, they feed in that area, most likely.
Well, and that's what, I had researched it, and they said that if there's a good food source, there would be a cluster. But this would have to be a very large black bear. I've never found bear scat in piles like this the rest of the years. It was impressive, and which it'll lead me to a little bit more here in a minute. And like I said, I camped there from '86 to 1993. I was in the military and working for the government, so I was out west. But I'm there every October. And again, that campground was at the base of the mountain. And one year, I had a trailer up there, and it had an aluminum roof. And during the night, I woke up to it sounded like a shotgun blast, but what it was something that fell on top of my trailer. And it wasn't an acorn. It was too loud. And of course, I played it off, and I said, well, maybe a part of a branch fell on top of the trailer. And it happened 2 more times after that. And I just said, well, it must be a little bit of wind and some branches or whatever. When I got up the next morning, I got up high enough to look on top of my trailer. There was nothing there. There was nothing laying around my trailer, and I had dents in the aluminum. And again, I kind of played it off a little bit and just said, well, it must have fallen off and gone into the woods. But it woke me up. And there was another time I was camped right next to there, and I was the only person in the entire campground for 3 nights. And the first 2 nights, I built a little fire and I enjoyed, being there in the solitude and just being happy. And the third night, I started my fire. It was dark, but there was absolutely no noises in the woods. It was so quiet that, it scared me. And of course, I locked myself in the trailer that night. It just wasn't right. Something wasn't right that night. It was so different than the other 2 nights. And it was off that night. And as time went on and being in that area, it led up to when I saw your video, and I started watching other videos, and I said, I started putting all these pieces to a puzzle together, and I'm like, I just need to listen. And one of the videos I watched actually was made in that area, and the locals have a name for Bigfoot in the area, and they call it the Great Fire Ape.
The fire ape?
The Great Fire Ape.
Okay, and touch base on this location. Where is this? In Virginia?
In West Virginia.
In West Virginia, okay.
Yeah. And the story or the is that Bigfoot in that area is attracted to campfires. And they say that Bigfoot will come into a house or a campground or anywhere where people are camping or around a campfire and observe them. They're attracted to it. And I found that really kind of neat. And then after watching some other things, I another words of wisdom, they said, you don't have to go out there and look. They're curious and they will come in and watch you.
Yep.
And in 2023, my buddy Curtis and I, we went over, it was September, and unfortunately I got to sleep with a CPAP machine, and I have to run a small generator, and that park has no electricity. And I asked if we could camp in the field adjacent, just above the campground, boarding the forest area where that camp volunteer told us the woods were haunted, so I could run this small generator to breathe. And it was just being working in my career field. You pay attention. You're a people watcher. You watch for small things. You remember things, and one thing, you always document the time. And we were sitting there. It was dusk. The sun had gone down, but you can see a little bit. And this field, there's ridge on each side of it. And it was 7:43 p.m. when I looked at my watch. But we were sitting there at the campfire, and there were three whoops, vocalizations it would have been on the east side of us. And it was 3 whoops, and this voice, it wasn't a bird. This voice went, caw, caw, like a crow, but it wasn't a crow. And I looked at my friend Curtis. I said, that's not birds. I said, it was whoop, 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 caw, caw. And then we just got really quiet. We started talking again. I told him, I said, I know what that is. And it was 8:45 p.m. on the ridge west of us, I mean, right behind us, there were 3 more whoops and 2 whistles. It was like whoop, whoop, whoop. And I know a lot of people watch videos and different things, and when you listen to some of the stuff on TV, they crank up of the volume on a lot of these vocalizations. And out in the forest, they might be loud, but those were just loud enough to communicate ridge to ridge. But after those second 3 whoops behind us, opposite of the previous ones, there was 2 whistles. So it was whoop, 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 and then 2 whistles. And I looked at my friend Curtis. I said, Curtis, I said, they're counting us. I said, 2 calls, 2 whistles, 2 of us. And then that's when we got just a little bit scared. And
oh wow.
yeah, so we called it a night a little bit later, went to bed, and the next day, we talked about it. It was rainy, and that is when everything that I experienced in my life, which there are other things, small things, that I was a believer for sure. I was 90%, 85% sure, but that night, that evening, that tied it together. And finally, I felt good about it. I mean, I felt good. I think, the following year, I think I got to see you again in 2024 twice, once in PA and once in West Virginia at the Bigfoot Festival. Well, last October, that's when I met up with you in October. That was Monday. The group of people I hunt with in that area in October, there's anywhere from 10 to, we've had as many as 30 guys come in for the weekend and hunt and just fish and have a good time. And that Saturday night we were in there, before I came over to talk to you guys, I had gone to bed. And a lot of the other guys had gone to their campers around where our main camp was in the center. And it bothers me. And I know I explained that to you guys. I was woken up by a scream. It wasn't just a little scream. It was of a volume that almost knocked me out of my cot in my tent. And I mean, once I got up and I got out of my tent, there were still some of the guys. There was 3 or 4 of the guys that was with us as a camp. We had a campfire there, and they were running down the road from the fire, and I was screaming, and what was that? What was that? I mean, it brought everybody out. And I mean, it shook me up. I'll tell you how much it shook me up. After I went back to my tent and everybody was back to their campsites, that was 11:30 p.m. I was terrified to even leave my tent. And finally at 4 a.m., I had to leave my tent because I had to go to the bathroom. And it was a full moon night, but at the times of the screams, there was somewhat of a cloud cover. But at 4 a.m., it was clear. And the next morning, everybody kind of gathered into the main site where we were cooking breakfast and stuff, and then the conversation started. And the guys at the campfire had said that wasn't the only scream, it was the last scream. They said that the scream came from below our campsite, lower in the campground. It had come off the ridge that borders, it's on the south side right there, borders the campground. And that ridge, it is so steep in that area. A person, you can't hike up it or hike down it. It's this steep, and it goes for a ways. And they said that they heard 3 to 4 screams coming off that ridge coming up. And they said it stopped And then it was it was 15 yards from my tent on the road that is in the campground. And they said that then it was gone. And they went down. There was one other campsite below us, adjacent to us. There was campers, and they said they went down to see what was going on, and they said those people were jumping in their tents. They didn't have anything to say to them. And then they came back up. So the next morning, when the conversation started, I had two guys that were on the other side of the screen, on their tents, in two different tents. And one of them was a former law enforcement officer. And of course, it woke him straight up. And he said he heard something running. He said, but it wasn't a person running. He said it had deep thuds on the pavement.
Almost like a stampede.
Well, it just was thump, thump, thump. And then my other hunting buddy in the tent, the next campsite close to him, he said, I heard the same thumps. He said, but there was more than one. And and then one of the gentlemen, one of my buddies who had heard those vocalizations a few years back that had scared his dog, I'll never forget this. He's probably in his early 70s now. That was probably 10 years ago that they heard those vocalizations up there. He just looked at all of us. He said, you guys all sat there and laughed. You thought it was real funny. He said, back when we heard those loud whoops up there in the woods that ran us out, he said that we were scared of. He goes, and he just looked at us. He goes, but who's laughing now? And he looked everybody dead in the eyes. He goes, I'm going to tell you exactly what that was. And he's a retired pipe fitter, union pipe fitter. And, God-fearing man. He just looked at us. He goes, I'm going to tell you exactly what that was. He goes, that was two juvenile Sasquatches. He said, and they were letting us know that they were there.
And this is the police. This is the police officer saying this.
No, it was the older gentleman that a few years back, he was the one with the hunting dog that got terrified when they heard those vocalizations up in the woods when they were hunting. My two buddies, they come out. And that's what he said. He goes, I'm telling you right now. He goes, that's what that was. And everybody just got quiet. And, but with all the little things over the years that I've gathered, the pieces of the puzzle are bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, everything fits together. And so that was Sunday morning. And my friend, who was a former law enforcement officer, we got my truck and we actually drove up to Reddish Knob up there on the West Virginia side. And he goes, I'm going to tell you something. He goes, I've had a lot of fun listening to you over the last few years. He goes, but I'm going to tell you right now. He goes, I've never heard anything like that in my life. He said, the volume, you'd have to have a lungs the size of a 50-gallon drum. I mean, it was, I won't say like trained horn loud, but if you got an opera singer to scream into your ear from a foot away, I could feel the sound waves hitting the tent. It was so loud. And he told me, he goes, I used to laugh and enjoy your stories. He goes, but I'm not laughing anymore. He said, next year, he goes, when I come back, he goes, I'm bringing recorders and trail cameras. He said,
for sure.
And he goes, I've never heard anything like that. And so, the down deep inside of me, because I only frequent that area in the fall and sometimes the summer. I rode my motorcycle down there probably 6 times this year and sat in the lower part of the park and just listened. And I didn't have any experiences then. But, it's, to me, from watching the game populations and one of the other things that sprung up probably 20 years ago, there was never coyotes in that area. But the night before we heard those whoops and that caw, the coyotes were going off, I mean, directly above us. And they were coming down into the campground. And I don't know if that's something you tie together, but
It's something you can kind of consider because you hear so many stories where coyotes have a connection to other vocalizations and stuff. Because there's a lot of things that will set a coyote off. But it's something to kind of keep note in the back of your head, in your mind, like, what's setting these coyotes off? Is there a connection? There's always that question about certain things. So yeah, it's something to consider and kind of made like there's that possibility. I mean, So
yeah, but it's like I had told you earlier, I got a back surgery finally this January because I haven't been able to get out. I haven't been mobile, and I am doing much better, which I will be out in that area again and exploring. I don't call myself an investigator. I'm an explorer. I explore. I've had, I have a list of things that I've experienced. I've never found a footprint. I've seen suspicious marks, out there on the floor of the forest or on the ground that I couldn't figure out, but I couldn't tie it to anything. The day that I smelled that odor on that part of the trail, it's so quiet. I mean, like I said, I went to the edge where I couldn't smell it anymore, but I was looking at the ground. I never looked up. It's one of those strange things. I didn't look up in the trees. I didn't look around me. But the day that I was paced out, because that's what it was when I was going down through the woods, I was being paced out of that area. And I could feel it. I was scared.
Yeah.
It's just over the mountain from where you are. I mean, there's thousands of acres of ground there, and the forest.
Oh, absolutely. Because back when you were sharing this information with it, when you came out to our camp back in October and shared what you guys heard out there, if you look on the map, basically, from my main research area from where you guys were camping and to where we were camping, it's kind of like a triangle. I kind of put it in almost that triangle cluster of activity because I've learned of other things since then, and not just from the experiences and activity I've had in my area, but from what you guys have and what we're kind of putting together in the area we're working at right now, which we hope that you would come May. Hopefully you can come join us this May. That'd be great to have you with us. But yeah, I think there's a cluster of activity and reports, not just from our experiences, but if you look at the history of other stuff that there's been small things that I've been shared and told about all in the surrounding center point of this whole area. So there's I personally want to call it a Sasquatch triangle right here in Virginia. You've heard of the Alaskan Triangle,
yeah,
where all kinds of strange stuff happens. Well, we got something going on here in Virginia people don't realize. If you start documenting and making notes of where these certain activities and sightings occurred, it's happening within this certain perimeter, which is forming a triangle to me. So
is Switzer Lake on 33 outside of Harrisonburg, going to West Virginia? Is that part of that triangle you're thinking of?
Oh yeah, that's just Switzer Lake. That's just right outside of Brandywine where he had his experience.
Yeah. So there's a lot of there's some reports from that area too.
Oh yeah, there was actually this one girl sent me a video clip. Her son and her ex-husband filmed a series of tracks along the lake. There was a trackway. You can't rule out human, but still, they were very interesting because some of them were interesting looking and they looked promising. but there was trackways around the edge of that lake one time. She sent me a video clip of that, and I had shared that some years ago. But so yeah, there's Switzer Lake. I mean, if Dave, I don't know if you've ever been down into Switzer Lake, but that lake, once you drop down to that lake, it is heavily forest, and if you follow it south, it runs into my research area. Like, you got Reddish Knob. It connects to Reddish Knob and all the whole area down there. So, but yeah, it's all part of the national forest. It's a very squatchy location, Switzer Lake. So,
yeah.
But I haven't been down in there it's been a good minute since I've been down in there. But I've been down there just to hike along and explore around the area. I mean, I personally can't say I've ever saw or found anything down there, but that doesn't mean it's not there. So, but yeah, that area is just being there alone is very squatchy. It sure is. But I think that's something you should put on your list there. Come and join us in May 18th to the 24th, Dave. What do you say?
I think we might have lost him.
Uh-oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, because it went black.
I see his profile up there. I don't know. Dave, where'd you go? He's not muted or anything. He may have to come back in. I wasn't looking at my phone. I mean, it's showing that it's acting like he's right there, but his camera's turned off. So
it looks like
Dave,
I don't trying to reactivate it.
Yeah. Dave, if you dropped off, just drop off and come back in. I'll add you back in. So Melissa, David, we're listening to Dave. What's your take on some of the stuff he's experienced?
I find it really intriguing from what his accounts and stuff like that. Because, like I said, he tries to rationalize about everything that he's seen and experienced and heard. It's just one of those things that, yeah, I take it all in. They can only tell us what they experienced and heard, especially when he came out to the camp and told us the story of what happened that weekend. Was pretty intriguing for him to make the trip to come out and tell us the story. I mean, that even validates a lot that I'm thinking about. Gives more credence to what's going on.
Right,
and,
exactly.
When he says, there he is, then when he says one of them was ex-law enforcement, he even got his attention. And when things happen out of the norm that you're not used to, that you can't explain, it keeps you coming back. For that,
yeah.
And yeah, I see Dave's back now. And did you all experience anything else that weekend when you went back, when you left the campsite, when you went back out? Did you all experience anything at that point? Forward.
There's some other strange coincidences, which I don't believe in coincidence. One was that when I was in high school, I ran into a couple friends of mine that I was in high school with. And their grandfather had a farm in that area, the same area, and they told me a story. Said they were in the back of a pickup truck. It was dark, and they were headed up to the farmhouse, and they were spotlighting, which was against the law, is against the law here. And under an apple tree, they had saw what they thought was a Bigfoot in that area. And of course, that always clapped on me when I was younger. And I'll tell you, there was one other story I'll tell you. I took my box trailer. I had a 16-foot box trailer, and I hauled it up to Lowe's in Maryland near me. And to pick up some flooring, I had a friend with me, and I had my camping stuff in the back of this trailer. And a forklift came out, and there was two guys and a girl. And one of the guys looked at my trailer and he said, do you use this for camping? I said, yeah. I said, actually, I'm getting ready to head out here in October to my favorite place to go camping. He said, I was camping 3 weeks ago. He goes, me, my girlfriend, and another friend of mine. And this is another thing that just, it stopped my heart. And I never met this guy. And he said, we were camping in a campground, and there was a real steep ridge, behind the campsite. He said after it got dark, he said these pieces of tree branch started flying over the tops of the trees. He said they weren't little. He said they were like 3 inches in diameter. He said like a yard long. He said they weren't. He said these trees were really tall. He said, and they were landing in the woods. He said, so we've got in our tent, and the next morning we got out of there. And I said, where were you guys camping at? He said, someplace in West Virginia called Brandywine. And I tell you, I just stopped talking. And I said, well, that makes sense. I mean, again, with all my experiences, and you know, I mean, I can't explain it. I haven't been able to get out of the campground because of my back, but I can get out this year. I plan on it. In fact, in May, like I was trying to figure out a way to kind of talk you guys to coming over with me for an afternoon to that area to look around. I mean,
yeah, Brandywine. I mean, it's been a long time. I've explored and looked around Brandywine during the daytime, but that would definitely be an area I would love to spend some nighttime out there. You know, especially with a parabolic mic. You know, being that area, you're on a. For those who don't know, Reddish Knob is considered one of the highest points in the state of Virginia on elevation, which is very interesting. It's listed under the top 5 or 6 or something like that of the highest elevations here in the state of Virginia. Most of your higher points are down in Southwest Virginia, but Reddish Knob is listed under one of those highest points. And with that being said, I mean, considering knowing the location and where it connects to, yeah, it's got nothing but woods and forests and dense, you know, forests all around it. So I mean, and I've heard other reports in the years past, years ago, from that area. So yeah, I mean, there's no doubt. I believe that that is a location for hangout or an area where they pass through. You know, because I mean, you got the food. There's plenty of food source around there. I mean, you know, there's Reddish Knob is a location for a lot of bear activity. So there's a lot of bear reports out there. So with that being said, there's a theory with that being said with bears, where you know, I'm not going to get too far into that, but there is a theory where for every so many bears, there's a population of a single Sasquatch, if not more. Depends on how you look at that. I mean, again, it's only theory, because I know in Lauren Coleman's book I have called Apes North America, he quoted, and don't hold me to this, because Lauren Coleman himself quoted me on this, because I didn't quote it quite accurately, but I put it out there some years ago in one of my discussions, and I kept this in my mind, and to me, it kind of makes a lot of sense. And within so many hundred black bears in an area could be equal, you may have one Bigfoot to every 100 black bears. Now, the reason why that is, he quoted that, is based off of the feeding population, or the feeding ground of like what could sustain a black bear in that area. If there's enough to sustain a black bear in this certain particular area, then you have the possibility of this area being able to sustain and hold something such as a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, you know. So this is something I kind of made note of some years ago. And again, yeah, I don't want to quote that. I don't want to get too far into that quote, because I could be slightly misleading others. I don't want to do that. But that theory is, I think, it has some bearing, you know, something to consider. You know, so think about, hey, does this area hold a lot of black bears? Damn right. Reddish Knob, for those who don't know Reddish Knob, it's a very popular bear hunting location for bear hunters, you know, because it's a mountain, and the bear hunters run their dogs up in these areas, you know, just like they do in the national area. I know David and Melissa, you guys know Cole McCoy. He hunts. He's a big time hunter, and he covers my main research area. That's where he does a lot of his bear hunting. course, every bear I see, he gets baby bears. I was like, come on now, why you got to get the baby bears? We got bigger bears than that here. I've seen them myself, you know. So, but these areas they do hold a lot of black bears. So, and so that's something to consider. If these areas are maintaining these black bears because the food source is there for them, then again, the food sources would have to be there for the Sasquatch. The water source, you know, there's various sources. I've been on top of some high ridges where a lot of your black bears go after your blueberries and your blackberries, and you know, your elderberries. There's a lot of them in the area, so there's plenty of food source for the black bears. So if these areas could sustain a black bear, and where a black bear could survive, just consider the possibility of a Sasquatch surviving in this area because the deer.
Well, the area is huge because the George Washington and the Jefferson National Forest encompass over 1.8 million acres. Now I don't know what that I don't know what that is in miles, but Virginia, West Virginia, part of Kentucky, and that's huge. That's a lot.
Yeah, and repeat that one more time again, David. What's the area? What's the acreage you mentioned?
It's over 1.8 million.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I know just the George Washington National Forest alone. When I looked it up some years ago, and again, yeah, like you said, that doesn't even consider the Jefferson National Forest and the other forest. I know there was as far as acreage goes, yeah, there was over 130,000 plus acres.
This is George Washington Jefferson. This is George Washington and Jefferson National Forest because they're both managed together. Okay. It's over 1.8 million. I just looked it up. I was curious when we was just talking about the area and wildlife and for feeding and stuff like that. How big is it? Well, it came up both of them over 1.8 million. Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky.
Right, and see, for those who are listening, that's a lot of land. Yeah, that's right here. That's it right here in Virginia, on the East Coast. So, it's just like when I've brought it up before too, because I've had these journalists made these articles because based off of my event, like why do they hold a Bigfoot event in Virginia? And these journalists that are negative Nellies that have put articles out there saying there's no Bigfoot in Virginia. They're on the West Coast. That's the problem. The West Coast gets all the attention because that's where a lot of the reports originated out of. But the thing is, a lot of people all along the Appalachian, they've kept quiet for all these years, and people finally, up to so many years ago, started coming out of the woodwork, and started sharing what they've experienced and seen in their own yards, Virginia, and not just Virginia, but the East Coast alone is highly underestimated. And, I've had people share with me where they never shared elsewhere before, which I felt honored that, hey, they're sharing their sightings. They're sharing their experiences. The East Coast has Bigfoot here, So, what is Bigfoot? That's another subject in itself. We can discuss that later. But the thing is that we have a hairy, large, humanoid, bipedal subject roaming the forests of the East Coast. The Appalachian Trail runs from Georgia down to Maine. From Maine to Georgia, vice versa. So the Appalachian Trail goes quite a ways. So here in Virginia alone, we live on the outskirts of the of the Appalachian Trail that runs through Virginia. So, the Allegheny Mountains. Allegheny Mountains run. Is a big part of West Virginia. That borders our territory here. So that's why I like promoting my research area and the surrounding area because people don't realize what we have here in Virginia. People think of Virginia, they think of Richmond, Virginia, or Northern Virginia. It's all city. No, Virginia is not all city. We have our cities like every other major counties and states, but we have a lot of forest and terrain that people neglect to realize that we have here. So, but it is what it is. So,
yeah.
So,
the agriculture. Over into West Virginia, George Washington, the entire river bottom and the valley up to there it's all feed corn. There's massive, I mean, many acres of corn that's growing up to there. And I know on the Virginia side, it continues. They support all the poultry houses that are scattered all over that area. I mean, food and water is not a problem to support any type of large mammal whatsoever.
Right. Absolutely. What was it good? Oh, kind of. There's something I wanted to bring up when you were talking earlier, Dave. Now you said you have to use a CPAP machine, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I use it at night.
Right.
I mean, my oxygen levels would drop. I mean, if I didn't use it, not that it would kill me, but yeah, I have to.
Right. Well, the reason I'm bringing that up because correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, you have to use one at night, don't you?
No.
No, what she uses
I use a thing called snoring really loud.
no, the machine you use when you have for your asthma.
Oh, okay.
What is it?
Brain fart.
What's it called? It's not a CPAP. Nebulizer.
Oh, okay. Now, the reason I'm asking that, because I know David, we just had somebody ask us, I think it was my buddy Tony LaRae, who lives in Northern Virginia. He was asking about, I think he was asking about the power station that I use. And that's why I tagged David in. I said, well, and the thing is, what David uses is what? Yours is an 800 watt for what you hook up to Melissa's machine, right?
Well, I have a 300 and an 800 watt, but either one would work. She only runs her machine 15 minutes at a time.
Well, that's
right.
It's been months since I've used it, but I take it with
me.
But it's been a long time.
As far as the power stations like that, you got to look at the watt hours that it draws and where you're going to use it continuously, and divide your watt hours into what your power station is, and that would tell you how long you can run it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the reason I wanted to bring that up because I was considering what Dave is talking about. He's got to use a CPAP machine, so because I know, like I said, Tony LaRae had asked about this not long ago on Facebook, and I was going to consider, and Dave, you mentioned you have to use a generator, so I was, maybe a power station might be more convenient and less quiet, and it may allow you to sleep better as well.
We actually talked about it right before I left in October when I was talking to you guys. I got to see that. I think it was the other couple there. I don't remember their names, but I think it was his wife that used the CPAP. I've looked at some of those power stations. I just got to figure out what, with my CPAP machine, what I will need to get me through the night, and then what it will take to recharge it the following day.
Yeah. I mean, I think just depends on how long do you normally sleep? You normally sleep 8 hours at least?
I don't know. I mean, if I was out there Bigfooting, I don't know, I'd probably get a few good naps during the day because I'd want to be up at night listening.
Right.
Yeah. I want to take advantage of that time. I mean, that's something that, I'll be honest with you, over the past couple of years, I don't want to venture outside of the campground at night where I'm at, especially after last October. That really sent me over the edge. I mean, with that, but I'm pretty sure that I can get the right equipment that I need and then just charge it during the day, and then and some of them are solar. I guess can charge from solar, but
that's what we got. They charge either by electric or by solar is what we got. That way you got both options.
Yeah, I know my power station. Mine's only a 300 watt, and you could charge it through solar as well. I have the solar option. I don't have the panels for it, but Yeah, I normally plug it up and charge it. I mean, you can probably plug it up in your vehicle and charge it that way as well.
That way
but,
too, yeah. We got cables for that too. But I mean, to give you a quick example, if that CPAP machine takes 35, if it's a 35 watt hour, and if you're going to sleep for 8 hours, a 300 watt power station, you can 300 divided by 35 to give you 8 hours, roughly, depending on weather, temperature, and stuff like that. But, I mean, that's how you figure that out. How many watts does it take to run per hour? Divide that into what your wattage is on your power station. That give you an average about how long you can run it continuously. Now, if it's periodic, that's going to extend it.
Yeah. Now, see, like if he's like me, and like if you use other devices that you want to plug up to it and charge,
that's going to affect it too. Yeah.
Right. Which I would probably, I would probably go with at least like what you have, an 800 watt at least. You know.
I mean, they got all sizes: 800, 1200, on up to 2,000 or 3,000 watt and stuff like that. But you need a trolley to pull those things around.
Yeah. Now, like I know they go up in prices and stuff, but so far I've been using mine. Mine's only a 300 watt. It's not a big expensive brand either. Because I mean, I've used it even in cold weather. I mean, I've used it to charge my rechargeable lanterns and lights and my phone. It'll charge up your laptop. But for being a 300 watt one, I paid $120 for mine on Amazon. And I mean, I can't complain. It's actually, I'm very impressed with it for what mine does. I mean, I don't have a machine like you guys have, but
well, we got the Echo Flow. Yeah, I mean, it's all personal choice as far as that. But
yeah,
if you watch them, if you're going to follow these, sometimes you can get some good deals on them too. Because when I was getting ready to buy one, I was looking at the 800 watt that came with 2 solar panels, and they threw in this 300 watt for free if I bought that package. So just follow them. I mean, I think I got it was at Home Depot or Lowe's is where I ordered it from. So if you follow it, if you think about getting them, and you would be able to catch these specials quite often, where they're throwing other stuff free to save you some money.
Yeah, that's something to consider too for anyone that's considering getting a power station. You know, especially if you're going to be out there camping for for whatever purpose you may need something like that for. Because, like I said, I got mine on Amazon, and I mean, I felt like I got a pretty good deal for what I got, but. Like I said, always compare other places because you might get a better deal. I know I'm a bargain shopper. I mean, I will compare prices on other sites. Sometimes Walmart online might have a better deal on certain things. Depends on what you're looking for, So, but yeah. So yeah, Dave, you gonna come out there camping with us in May?
I'm going to try. I'm going to get up there. I don't know if it's going to be the whole time. But I'm definitely. I have it marked in my calendar. It was funny because you mentioned it. I think it was last week, and when I got on my calendar, I'd already loaded it in. I already have it marked out. And then I guess I'll be visiting again in June. I think back-to-back weekends. The one Friday, Saturday that you have down in Ware's Cave. And then the following weekend is the Bigfoot Festival in West Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, so speaking of the June event, of course, yes, it's Friday, June 20th and the 21st. The 21st being the main day event. But Friday, June 20th, we do have 2 speakers scheduled to speak on Friday night. We have Jason Kenzie, for those who watch and follow his Searching for Sasquatch Bigfoot series. Jason Kenzie will be joining us Friday night. He will be there also Saturday, June 21st, because him and Ron House decided he's going to share his opening presentation with Jason Kenzie. So we'll have that going on. And Jason Kenzie, like I said, he films and investigates areas that have Bigfoot reported activity. And I've been in touch with him recently, and we decided to do at least a couple nights following the event. So anybody that wants to be a part of that, and this goes out to you, Melissa and David, Jason agreed to do at least a minimum of a 2-night camp out right after the event in June. Usually, I don't care for camping in the middle of June because it's hot. But I told Jason, I presented the idea to him, and he's all for it. I just have to provide a tent for him to sleep in. But Jason Kenzie will be. I agreed to take him out to my main research area, and we'll see what we can. If something happens, and
Elkhorn.
Yeah, up around the Elkhorn area. So
I've been itching to get out there. Oh.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Elkhorn Lake, now. Not next weekend, because next weekend, March 22nd, I'm actually going to be vending. I'll be a vendor at a local event just a couple miles up the road. The Cremora Athletics Group, they do their opening baseball day. They have several different games going on that day. They turn into a small little mini festival. And they've been wanting me to come up there and set up. So I'll be setting up I'll have some Bigfoot merchandise, not much, but I'm going to be mainly promoting the June event. And another friend of mine who does Bigfoot and other cryptid soaps and stuff, she lives up around in northern. Where does she live in? She lives around the Strasburg area. She's actually going to be setting up there. So there'll be a couple of us Bigfoot cryptid vendors there setting it up. And but that's like I said, that's next Saturday. That's at the Cremora Park, a couple miles up the road from me. So I thought it'd be cool to do a local event, sell some Bigfoot merchandise and promote the event in June. And then the weekend after that, the very last weekend of June, the very last weekend in March, weather permitting, I plan on going camping at the end of March. But I plan on, if the weather is good, I am going to go out camping with me and my grandson. And I've been itching to get him out in the woods to camp with me. And so we'll see how it goes, weather permitting, because, if the weather and the temperatures are right, he's only 4 years old. He's a little guy. So, but I really want to get him out in the woods. So that's something I may be looking at doing, is camping in the woods with, my grandson, Caden. It's going to be a quiet weekend this weekend because he's with his other grandmother this weekend. So, but yeah, I got to see him very briefly before I went to lay down for a nap earlier today. And of course, then I got up and I got to go into work at 2:00 this morning. So for overtime, and then later tomorrow,
you gonna be able to handle it at 2 a.m.?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now, if I can get up at 3 a.m. for work, you can get up at 2.
Oh yeah, I probably won't even fall asleep again because but I know what I'm going to be doing at work today. So at 2:00 in the morning, so it's no big deal. So we're only going to be from 2 a.m. We'll probably run and finish around 7 a.m. the latest. So, but yeah. But it's a machine that I've helped work on before. It's just they have a lot of product that needs to get out. So and the machines hasn't been up and running. So hopefully it cooperates with us tonight. So when we go in, but hey, it's not like we're going to be making donuts or anything. Gosh,
David's not making donuts anymore.
What?
He's done.
I went back into retirement.
Yesterday was his last day. He got tired of telling him what to do.
Well, shoot, David. You got tired of her telling you what to do at work. Now you just have to deal with it at home now.
She might have been a supervisor there, but for me, it was on paper only. Okay.
Oh Lord.
No. It was time. I had to go back into retirement. I mean, I was there for 2 years, getting out of the house a little bit, but 2.5. But no, I'm done.
You got tired of me busting your chops about you making donuts. That's all it is.
Yeah, you and Ron. Yeah. Like they say, payback's a biatch sometimes.
Come on, you don't have to. We joke about it. We love you, David. You don't have to do
that. I did enjoy it I did in the last 2 careers. It was different. I'll give you that right now. It was different.
Yeah. Hey, look at what William Nighthawk said. Time to make the moonshine now, David. LOL.
William, daggone it.
Hey, my great grandfather apparently made moonshine and sold it back in West Virginia, back in Hardy County, but I don't know whatever happened to anything.
Look at here, my hair is almost as long as Williams. With this ponytail, give me about another 8 inches. I have it matched.
Well, be careful. Don't get yourself scalped.
Oh no, exactly. Make
Oh,
donuts
Lord.
camping, huh?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah,
for those
to come camping and bring us donuts.
I got
Well,
an
for
apron.
those-
I got an
Even
apron.
though I don't-
I got an apron she can borrow.
Oh, Sarah's probably got her own. Oh, for those who don't know Sarah, Sarah is the girl behind the medieval Renaissance that's going to be at the event in June. So,
Oh, okay.
I've
Yeah.
already figured that out in the group chat. So.
yep, yeah. And she actually lives not far from where we camp at. So she lives in around the Signals Glen area. So she's not far from.
I already have an idea. So.
Well,
Yeah, she's not far. Yeah, she lives right there in Signals Glen. So, yep.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah, she used to live out in Richmond. She moved from Richmond with her son. She got her son. She got an older son that lives with her. He's special needs. I have yet to meet him. I have not met him. He sounds like a really nice gentleman. But yeah, he's an older gentleman. He's special needs. And Sarah, she's in the nurse field. So yeah, I think she works for over in Centera Hospital or one Rockingham. So absolutely, yeah.
And
So yeah, Sarah, you're more than welcome to come out and join us in May if you want to camp with us. You're more than welcome. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, your son. I don't know. I mean, your son might even enjoy being out there. So, I mean, you're not far from home. So, so. Let's see what she said. No. VMRC.
Virginia Mennonite Retirement Community.
Ah, okay. There we go. So, but hey, the invite's out there to you, Sarah. I mean, you're not far from where we camp at in May. So, yeah. So, absolutely. Good deal. Ed, Dave, and Melissa, do you guys have anything you want to share or ask questions to Dave?
No, I'm just glad to catch up with his encounters again and everything that he told us at camp. Plus, he went into a little bit more detail tonight than the time he had allocated that day when he was there. But it's pretty interesting. And hopefully, we get some more and we'll link up again and camp and see what else happens in the future.
Yeah, and at some point, I'd like to hear his full story because if you recall, I had been out the way. I'd come out the way to take care of our animals. So I missed the interview that you did with him. I came back as it was finishing up pretty much.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So I didn't get to hear, but just the very end of it. Because I'm like, who is that? What's going on?
Yeah, he just walked out of the woods and joined us at the campsite.
I'm just like,
that's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I can tell you guys, it's all Daniel's fault. I mean, when I caught that video, he drugged me down the rabbit hole, and then it all came together. It's all his fault, and it's. But the one thing I mean, for the people that can hear me, I tell people this all the time. It's really neat to get out there in the woods, and you got to. But it's also important to enjoy sitting around the campfire with friends and family, and because they're going to come down and watch you too.
Yep.
And just keep your ears open, your eyes open, and enjoy being outside and enjoy being in the forest. I mean it's worth a lifetime. I've had a good life going out and enjoying friends and when I came over there in October, I mean, I told Daniel this. I mean, after that experience that Saturday night, I was upset. I mean, I had a lot of problems. I mean, thinking about the whole situation. And when I left, and I thanked him, I said, because if you do have an experience, or it's important to talk sometimes. It's important to get it out of you so you can move forward. And I wasn't moving forward on Sunday, but after I came over and got to talk to everybody there, I felt like a new person.
It helps people put things in perspective. No matter which way it goes, it helps to rationalize a little bit better about what may have happened. Is that the first time you and Daniel met that day by chance?
No, the first time I met, let's see, this is
Was that my event?
It was
At the event. Okay.
23 have been October 2022, I think. I brought a friend of mine from work over. I mean, like I said, I saw the video, and then I looked it up on the internet, and I said, Harrisonburg, Virginia. I said, heck, that's just right over the hill. I mean, a couple hours. And, you know, and things got busy, and the first speaker started, and I just sat there, and I was hooked. And after, what was also really great about is going to these festivals or gatherings. The funny thing I always tell people, I will be there if there's 2 words: food truck. I'm there.
we got some good food trucks coming this year. Yeah, we got some good ones.
But the other great thing is there are other people there who have experienced. They listen to you. And then they share their information with you. And all of that first time in Wader's Cave, when I left there that day, I felt so much better that day. I said, you know, I'm not the only one.
Nope.
And there was a lady there that told me about hiking in, was it Shenandoah National Forest over there? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she was hiking alone, and she talked about a structure that she didn't quite understand, and she went inside of it, and she told me she had heard something, and she said the best way she could explain it, it sounded like a horse growling.
Mm.
And it was really interesting, but she wasn't the only person there that shared with me and that I shared with. I remember talking to, what's her name, Gwendolyn Purcell or something like that?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I met her, and I met her again up there in Pennsylvania last year at that event. You know, we talked for a long time, and I got to meet her husband. And
Michael. Yeah.
And what it is, I mean, you can hold all this stuff inside of you, but when you get it out, you'll feel better. You gotta talk.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things why I like doing this, because I want people to come out and speak openly on these podcasts. You know, because I've had people that have come forward once they've gotten to know me. They've taken chances with me, and some people have not known me from Adam, and they've come across my details, like I leave out in public, or my cards. And I've had people message me, email me, send me a text message, or whatever it is, and they want to talk. I mean, some of these messages and emails I get are like, I mean, you could probably make a book out of some of this information. And and that's why I put myself out there, because I want people to come forward. I've had people come forward over the years that's never shared a story or shared anything that they've ever experienced a day in their life. But they'll take a chance on you. They feel they'll get a connection with you, and they feel like they can open up and tell you what they have experienced. And I welcome that, and I try my best to respond to people, because I have people, I have responded to other people. I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I got like one individual I'm scared, that's reached out to me, which I'm working on booking him for next weekend, for to be on here. But yeah, I've had people come out of the woodwork, right here in Virginia alone. I mean, I've had a mother and daughter share their sighting and their experience years ago while driving up the mountain on 33 headed east. So I mean, there's a lot of Bigfoot reports and sightings out here that people are, over the years have slowly started to come forward, and I welcome it. I mean, we're not here to judge you. We want to hear your story. Yeah, there's some people out there that will make mockery and joke about it. I mean, years ago, I was out there at Elkhorn Lake in my main research area. I was with a couple of friends, a buddy of mine and his teenage son at the time. And we were walking down to the lake, and the young boy, my friend's son, because him and my daughter went to school together, he was looking through the binoculars. We were down by the lake, and there was people fishing. The one guy's like, "What are you looking for?" The young boy, he didn't have a filter. He said, "We're looking for Bigfoot." Of course, the guy, he rolled his eyes. He said, "You got to be fucking shitting me." You know what? But that's what we were there for. We were hiking down to the lake, just so, and the young boy was looking through his binoculars. But I mean, it didn't affect us. It didn't offend us at all. The young boy spoke his mind. That's what we were there for. Because the father, he's a good friend of mine. He's an avid hunter, and he's an Iraqi veteran, and he's had experiences out in Ohio, and not Ohio, right here in Virginia alone while hunting. So he knows what's out here. But it's just, you can't be afraid of mockery and ridicule. I don't care who you are. If you have an experience, don't be afraid to share it. That's what we're here for. We want to hear from you. So, absolutely.
Well, that's what we want to do. We want to hear people talk about it too. We've only been actually actively involved in this for about the last 4 or 5 years since we met Daniel at the mall a few years back. And everybody we've talked to's had quite a bit going on with them and stuff, but we've had hardly anything. I've caught some interesting sounds on a couple of campouts when I put my recorders out overnight, and one of them last summer, about 2 o'clock in the morning, by the time stamp on the recorder, we heard this. I heard this. It recorded either a distinct tree knock. You could tell the difference between a break and a knock. You get that sudden bap, or it could have been 2 rocks being hit together. There's
right.
One of the two. And I sent Daniel a copy of it so he could hear that too. But talking to Dave, the experience that he's had over the years and stuff like that. And then we had that Pennsylvania couple that came down. The day we left camp in September, they had their experience at the gate where I showed them to walk to the lake at. She thought it was a bear that ran across the road, but from her description, it wasn't a bear. And
nope.
I mean, that's another story within itself that Daniel knows. That I don't know if they've seen that on this video or not, where her husband was interviewing her.
At the very end. I added a clip at the very end. Yeah,
on one of the videos that Daniel put on there, and that was pretty interesting because we got to talking to her, and I said, I don't think that was a bear. Bear don't run on 2 feet like that.
No.
But again, that's another story within itself, because I know you got to get up at 2 a.m., Daniel, but it is on video. If they pulls that up, it's one of the more recent ones on there on Daniel's.
I think I titled that one the Virginia Bigfoot. I want to say it's it's one of the last little documentaries I put together myself. I think it's called the Virginia Bigfoot documentary. Yeah.
And you put her video, his video towards the end of that episode you put on YouTube too. It went up in the front, so if he pulls it up, he can go towards the end of it to be able to hear their story on what transpired. Same area where you came out and talked to us that day.
Yeah,
it's quite a bit.
The quality of it is, I mean, you won't have the best looking quality on that clipping on towards the end, because I advised them when he told me he was going to do that, and I was like, please turn your phone. If you're going to use your phone, turn it sideways so it catches the broad angle, not the upright. So I had to do a little editing in it, and but it still worked out pretty good. It's just, it's
still good. I mean, people that watch it get the point. you can't expect everybody to either landscape or portrait view and stuff like that. I mean, mix it up. I think if you mix it up sometimes, it makes it more interesting anyway. But I mean, that's me and my personal thought.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He did a good job talking to her and bringing more out of her after we talked to her before that was made anyway. But you could tell she was unnerved because she realized she experienced something that wasn't a bear in her opinion, and it wasn't a hunter.
Yeah, and what adds to me personally, what adds credibility to all this is this whole general location that where we camped at. I mean, years ago, I mean, I've heard of reports and sightings from bear hunters who have had sightings out there in the same general location. I've had a group of young guys that saw my vehicle when I was camping, when I was parked up by the entrance of the lake. I was up by the Johnny house there in Elkhorn Lake. These guys in a small pickup truck saw my vehicle because they saw the Bigfoot decals on there, and they felt like, hey, they had to stop. And they pulled out their phone and they showed me a picture of a trackway in about 2 or 3 inches of snow along some roadway. And these trackways, I'm going to tell you, they were very impressive. Judging from the picture of the tracks, these things had to be 18 to 20 inches long. And they were very clear in a long, narrow gate trackway. And I'm thinking, okay, when they first showed this to me, I'm thinking it's somewhere around this general area. And I was like, where was this at? And they told me the name of the area. They said up around Fox Run, around the Hogpen Road on one of the back roads that go around the lake. My jaw about dropped. Because that's the location where I just recently learned of that location because a buddy of mine I used to work with took me out not far from there, and we camped there. So, so there's definitely a Bigfoot creature or subject walking and roaming those woods out there. So, I mean, these were large tracks out. And they were supposed to send this to me. I never did get a copy of this this picture they sent me. Well, they showed me on their phone because they had all my information. I don't know why, but they never did. Either they forgot, or I don't know what the purpose was or reason. But yeah, they never shared it to me. I was hoping to get copies of this because when they told me the location, I was like, my jaw about dropped. I was like, wow. So, I mean, to me, what I saw, I was impressed with it, and it confirmed that, yeah, there is something out there. And so, I don't know.
A large portion of Hopkins Gap Road there in Fox Run, it all the way up to Peak Mountain Road is nothing but woods. I mean, the road runs right through the woods. It was created right through the woods. And it gets really dense the further up you go, where you turn right to go across that little bridge to head up to Slate Lick. If you keep on going straight, you'll come up on Peak Mountain Road where you can veer right and it takes you out to 33, or you can veer left and it'll take you out towards Hinton on that end of 33.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. I know there's a location where I camped at some years ago when a buddy of mine I used to work with introduced me to the Fox Run area. It was if you're on 259, instead of turning down on you go past Hopkins Gap Road, you go past there, past there's a store on the right, and then I think there's a fire department on the right. Well, up on the left, up across from there's a road that takes you all the way in the back. And I want to say I could be wrong. Yeah, I want to say it's Little North Mountain Road or something like that. You follow it all the way out, and you split left. If you keep right, I know my buddy Richard said, yeah, if you follow this straight, they'll take you to what they call Little Germany River. But where we turn left, you got to cross. There's a concrete pad where the creek runs through. You got to drive through the concrete pad where the creek is. Then you come up on the gravel. It's all gravel, and it takes you all the way up to the top of the mountain, and then you drop all the way down on the back side of the mountain. And that's the first area he's ever taken me to out there. Where we've had the one night I camped with him, we as far as experience wise, we heard a grunt real close to camp where he's like, "That's a bear." Where we started we end up banging noises, banging jugs, stuff, scare off if there's a bear in the area. Well, we never had no other experiences that night together, but I ended up going out there like a week or two later, and I was camping by myself, dead calm in the middle of the day, and of course it got nighttime, and he told me the area, it gets very eerie because you're below the power lines, and at night all the cool air settles down. It gets very eerie, and all you hear is the sound of the power lines snap, crackle, and pop. Of course, he sort of named the area Whispering Hollow because sometimes the sounds of the power lines sound like a little whispers, And I was there by myself one night, camping out, and I'm sitting there I had lights, I had the lanterns and everything. I had my little camp area pretty well lit up, and I'm sitting there. And up behind me, off to my left, out of nowhere, I hear this loud tree crack, like a limb being broken, broke off. No wind. It was dead quiet, very calm. And I'm thinking, oh shit. I'm thinking, okay, there's a bear in the area. So what do? I grab what I can and start banging stuff together and making noise. And yes, I was armed. I had my 45 with me at the time. And after banging and making a bunch of noise, I put things down. I sat there and just relaxed. And it was dead quiet. It probably wasn't even maybe 5 minutes or so later, right directly behind my camp or where my tent was, it happens again, but very close. I'm freaking out. And I'm grabbing my gun, which was sitting right beside me, and my spotlight. And I'm trying to shine behind me where I'm hearing this noise. And keep in mind, my spotlight apparently wasn't charged up enough because I'm pulling the trigger on the spotlight and it doesn't even stay on for about 10 seconds at a time. And I was like, oh shit. Like I can't see nothing because even when it did shine, the fog was settled in. It was so thick you can't see what might be behind you 20 feet. And so I started freaking out. Next thing you know, I'm grabbing all my most valuables, throwing them in my vehicle at the time. And I get out of Dodge. I drive back up that mountain, back on the other side. And yeah, I mean, I came back in the phone service and it's like, yeah, I contacted my father. I was like, yeah, I'm coming home. I explained to him briefly what was going on. I said, I don't know what's out here, but there's something approaching my camp and what, blah, blah, blah. But I ended up going back out there a couple of weeks later. My tent was still there. Everything was untouched. So, but I don't know. It was just, I was by myself. I was in a new area. I felt very vulnerable. But whatever was approaching me was very bold and didn't care. So, but yeah. So, but yeah, that was several years ago. That was also in the Fox Run area. So, but it is whatever. So, oh man.
You need to go back and face your fears.
Yeah, I'll go back there eventually. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll feel different about there.
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I have equipment now. You know, I mean, like, you know, back then I didn't have a thermal flare. I didn't have nothing. I mean, perhaps I could have viewed the area better, but I didn't have no equipment with me that could have like, okay, what's out there? You know, I didn't have none of that with me. I didn't have night vision. I didn't have thermals. So, but it's good to have that stuff now because you can see things that you can't normally see with a naked eye. You know?
Yeah, I got all that stuff now too after Daniel made me buy it.
Yeah, Daniel's nothing but trouble in that aspect. As soon as he gets some new electronic equipment or anything like that, boy, he's letting him know. Next thing you know, he's getting it.
Well, David, if you keep buying new thermals and gear and technology, you might have to go back to Krispy Kreme.
It's all your fault.
No, I think I'm about tapped out on what I can get now, except for the parabolic mic. I just got my first thermal the other day. It's pretty good. It works pretty daggone good.
From what you showed me, yeah. Yeah, it looks
already
good.
got 3 night IR cameras, of course, my regular cameras, and my body cam type stuff, and now I got a thermal. So I think we're pretty much set for what I need to do out in the woods, plus all my recorders and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty much set up with what we need to do any nighttime recording and whatnot, and except for the parabolic mic, dagnabbit. I got to see what I got to pay him. I got to see what I got to pay Uncle Sam here when I do my taxes, and then get that taken care of. They'll get me a mic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dave, before we jump off here, do you have any other things, anything you want to share with us before we go?
No, I don't really have a whole lot left. I do want to. I'm going to send Daniel. I'm going to send you my information so you can share with David and Melissa there. I still have those pictures. I know I showed them to you last October. Of those 2 trees that had been pushed over across the road from our campsite, but that happened probably a day before we got there. Probably maybe a Thursday night, or because we got there Friday. I found those very interesting too. You know, they caught because they were still very green, and by the end of the week, the leaves had turned yellow. They were locust trees. They were probably about 7-8 inches in diameter at the base, maybe a little bit bigger. But there was no other trees. There was no other trees laying down there. It was just those 2, and of course, you know, on up to that field above, that's where I'd heard vocalizations. But yeah, I just want to share my information with you guys, and I'll be honest with you. Like I said before, I mean, you don't have to go out and look per se. Just sit down and enjoy a campfire. They'll come look for you.
That's what we're about. Go out, relax, enjoy the camaraderie, camping, being out in the woods, nature, and everything. And then we do this on the side while we're out there. So do a little bit of research, see what we come across.
Absolutely.
To me, that's the best way to go about it. I'm not out there just solely focused on that. I want to encompass everything while you're out there. I think if you do that, you're gonna get more out of it anyway.
And to me, the woods is one of the most relaxing and wonderful places and beautiful places to be. You just have to slow down, keep your mouth shut, and just listen. And
That's
it's
right.
amazing what you can hear.
The only problem is
love
taking
it.
Melissa out there camping with us. When you leave, there ain't no plants left or there ain't no rocks left. You just got to pick up everything that you come to.
I'm a rock hound. I admit it. I have that addiction.
And she's into plants too, herbs and all this other stuff.
I love herbs and stuff like that in the woods. It's
Yeah, I actually appreciate that part of you, Melissa, because you know, like it's educational when you point out certain things. Like, oh, okay, I had no idea that's what they were, you know, and you know all that good stuff. So that's good to know, you know.
Yeah, you remember that time when you asked if that was stinging nettle, and I said, I'm not sure. I think it is, but I haven't seen it before in real life, so I touched it. Yep, that's stinging nettle.
Yeah. I only got mow my yard twice a year because she picks the rest of the year.
Nothing like wild violet jelly. Oh man, or dandelion jelly. Tastes like honey.
Wow.
Well, Daniel, I thought you were off on weekends. Is this a special thing for your overtime tonight?
Yeah, well, my boss asked me. Yeah, my boss asked me earlier today. He said, "Hey, you want to work overtime?" I said, "Yeah." He said, because at first he said Saturday. I said, "Yeah, I'll come in Saturday morning." You know, because our start time is usually 7:00. But yeah, when they said, "Well, the machine they want," he said they're going to come in at 2:00 and work till 7. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, sure, I'll do it."
Yeah.
And the machine that they're running, I've helped on that machine before. It's just they have a lot of product that needs to get out, and it's just that machine hasn't been running to full capacity, and yeah, they've had some issues with it. So yeah, I agreed to come in. I said, because you know I had to leave early yesterday because I had court, and I had court at 2:00, so I had to leave by noontime, go home, get cleaned up and dressed, and yeah, it was court that I should have never had to go for. It was because of my ex-wife from 24 years ago. Yeah, because well, what happened with the system? It's back child support that she owes me, and I was like, what? Why? I said, I didn't pursue this, but it shows me versus her. I said, the system must have done it on themselves, so I was like, but long story short, when I went to court, whatever, because, she wasn't found and they couldn't locate her. And the judge was like, well, we're going to release you. That way you don't have to be here the next time. The next court date ain't until July. So yeah, they have it set to where I don't have to go back again. I can if I want to, but I was like, no, even if they do find her, she shows up, I don't want to see her.
24 years ago? Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, I mean, she's never paid. I mean, Brianna will be 24 in June. And the thing is, she's never paid 1 cent of child support. Now, they have no problem finding me because I pay child support on my youngest daughter. Well, I have about a year left on paying child support for her. But yeah, they have no problem locating me and making sure I pay. But yeah, my ex-wife, I don't know. She works under the table and she gets away with everything under the sun. But
all right.
Yeah. But it is what it is, guys. But tell you what, tonight's been a great discussion, guys. I plan on coming back next weekend, Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do have an individual who I've been contacting with, and he has some experiences he wants to talk and share. His name is Roger, last name House, Roger House. And I'll keep everybody updated on that. So, but yeah, guys, thank you guys again for jumping on tonight. We're going to call it a night. And I might try to get some sleep. I don't know. I might just stay up and see how it goes from here. I don't know. But you guys have a good night, and thank you guys again for jumping on.
All right. Hopefully we'll see you in May. We're coming up here. It's just right around the corner, Dave.
All right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll keep everybody up posted on social media as well. So follow along, and until next time, guys, we're out.
All right. Have a good night.
Have a good night,
See you.
guys.